Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much to have come to this study case about Lyon Confluence project. The future of the climate lies largely in the hands of the territories. In particular, the urban territories, which represent 75% of greenhouse gas emission and also all the levers for action. In terms of combating global warming, the city of Lyon has been a frontrunner for many years now. The basis of our mobilization is an exemplary territorial climate and energy plan produced in 2007. The result of a large mobilization of local partners. We got already remarkable results. A 12% reduction in greenhouse gas emission between 2001 and 2014. Of this total, the climate plan is responsible for at least minus 170,000 tons of CO2 per year. The three main axes of action are the mobility policy, the energy policy, the housing policy. Policies are embodied in practice in exemplary districts. Lyon Confluence is thus one of the largest city center urban expansion projects in Europe. It is the only district in France to have been awarded the Sustainable District label by the World Wide Foundation, just like Masdar City. The area comprises 150 hectares between the Rhône and Saône rivers, extending out from the heart of Lyon's city center. The land was reclaimed from the water between 1770 and 1850, and for a long time, the area was used for industrial and logistical activities. The disappearance of these activities gradually created industrial brownfields and a land reserve at the heart of the urban area, but with many assets. A central location extending out of Lyon's peninsula, very efficient public transit service, train, metro, 2 tramways, 7,000 residents in a quarter that has been inhabited since the 19th century, and at last, a landscape of exceptional quality at the confluence of the two rivers, featuring 5 kilometers of riverbanks. This project is really a product of a strong political commitment of Lyon's mayors, from Raymond Barre to Gérard Collomb today. They all have the ambition to regenerate the whole area, thus doubling the city center, yet in keeping with the climate plan. The project began in 1998, but it soon appeared that numerous challenges were to be faced to carry it out. The first of them was the financing of the decontamination process in order to make the area compatible with its new users. At present, all the work is completed or in progress. For the first phase, not less than 250,000 tons of soil were removed and decontaminated in a treatment center. So today the key figures are reclaimed industrial land, 70 hectares, 25,000 jobs brought to the district, 16,000 residents by the end of this project, 35 hectares of public spaces, 25 to 30 hectares of green space in the overall project. The decision to transform the industrial brownfields was based not only on the desire to recover a prime location, but also to make this area into a showcase of an ambitious city of the future. A smart, sustainable city, a walkable city conducive to new forms of mobility, bold architectural statements, a city for everyone, fostering social diversity. This project has been planned in two steps. We are in the second step nowadays. This second step will be finished in 2025, and at this time, we'll have built 1 million square meters. And now, as a conclusion to my address, I would like to show you a 5-minute video which will give you a glimpse of the development of the Lyon Confluence project.
In the heart of Lyon, the most important urban transformation in Europe in size and innovation is underway. The ancient center of Lyon is built on a peninsula between two rivers. The northern half is a part of Lyon designated by UNESCO as a World Heritage Site. The southern half was, as recently as 10 years ago, an industrial wasteland. 370 acres are being transformed in 2 stages. The first, begun in 2003, is now finished. The second is just beginning. Among the achievements of the first phase is the tramway extension. By passing under the arches of the Perrache train station, connections between the Confluence and the rest of Lyon are now much easier. In front of the train station, at the entrance to the Confluence, there is now a large public square, la Place des Archives. Soon, the arches under the station will become a passageway and open to light. On the side of the Rhône, the Place des Archives is bordered by an ancient prison, which will be transformed for other uses. Sainte-Blandine, a neighborhood created in the 19th century, will be the object of an eco-renovation. The goal is to reduce energy consumption in existing buildings by 75%. Most of the first phase focused on the side where the Saône River runs. This included a long walkway along the riverbank, a new life for the Port Rimbaud docks where job-creating businesses are located, an inner harbor with terraced embankments called Nautical Square, small islands of new apartment buildings on the north bank of the square, on the south bank a long building called the Leisure Center. The center contains shops, restaurants, cinemas, and a climbing wall. On Charlemagne Street, the neighborhood's main axis, the Rhône-Alpes Regional Hotel is being built. Of the first phase's 101 acres, 54, more than half, are public spaces. It's a remarkable ratio for the heart of a city.
Au fond, c'est le cœur de Lyon qui attend qu'il puisse se développer et devenir vraiment un cœur, c'est-à-dire un centre urbain qui s'agrandit vers le sud, vers cet événement géographique, cet événement topographique qui est la confluence, qui est où 2 fleuves, où un fleuve et une rivière se rencontrent.
Conceived by Swiss architects Herzog and de Meuron, the project's second phase covers 86 acres on the Rhône side. It will occupy what was once the wholesale market. The project is divided into 2 parts. The northern part will expand Sainte-Blandine and become the market area, creating a dense and diversified city. The southern part, that the designers call the Campo, or the field, will be a partially developed private park spanned by public footpaths. It will be linked on the east and west by new bridges or walkways.
Nous voulons garder certaines portions du marché de gros d'avoir une continuité architecturale, de garder une identité de quartier. La transformation de structures industrielles est dans beaucoup de cas presque meilleure pour l'industrie créative que des bâtiments neufs.
The streets in St. Blondine will be extended into the new shopping neighborhood. Buildings lining the road will be of varied heights and open onto inner garden courtyards that can be crossed on foot.
Ce front de ville avance vers le sud. Et à un moment donné, vous avez effectivement une transversale qui va marquer symboliquement la fin de la ville, on va dire dans le prolongement de ce qu'il était.
This decision by the designers orients the city towards the countryside and the distant horizon.
Ce mélange du paysage et de ce développement urbain est très très important et très spécifique. C'était d'ailleurs une volonté d'il y a plus de 10 ans de dire mais si on veut que les gens restent ici en centre-ville, si on veut éviter cette fuite des nouveaux habitants vers les quartiers périphériques, phénomène qui s'est peu ralenti depuis lors, alors sans doute il faut qu'on soit à la fois très urbain mais en même temps très immergé dans le paysage.
As you can see, Lyon is a smart and sustainable city. Some of our Lyon most innovative companies help us to build up the vision of our city in the future. I would like to give the floor to one of them. The company is called City, and the CEO, Mr. Thomas Lagier, is here to give us a quick presentation on their know-how.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much, Mr. Galliano, to give me the opportunity to present what we are doing in Lyon. City is a young startup, 2 years old, 52 persons, and we help decision maker to make complex decisions. And for that, we have a powerful decision tool, a powerful platform with a collaborative 3D experience, and with the ability to do systemic modeling. So I will just give you 2 examples of what we are doing on Lyon Metropole very concretely. So first example is a public transport issue. Lyon had just inaugurated a new football stadium. The stadium is big, but the stadium is far from a main transport line. And the expert and the media were very pessimistic on the ability to deliver an efficient public transport service. So the transport operator asked us to simulate a lot of different scenarios, and with the data of the Metropole of Lyon and also with the data of the operator, we're able to build a powerful decision tool. And as you can see, we are able to simulate and compare different scenarios and different criteria, different KPIs. We're able to calculate isochron. It doesn't work. Sorry, could you launch the movie? So this is small. This is movies to illustrate what the decision tool help to do. So you can see calculation of isochron. So you can estimate the time to leave the stadium and the time to reach your final destination. You can also assess the systemic impact on the world traffic on the public transport quality, especially for people who are not concerned by the football, but they just want to move in the rest of the metropole. And also, we are able to take into account traffic, as you can see here, and to measure the influence of the traffic of vehicles on the public transport, for example, on the speed of the tram, of the buses and shuttles. So with this example, the operator were able to compare quantities of different scenarios and to choose the most efficient and the most resilient scenario. And the good news is that there were no trouble during the the inauguration of the football stadium. The second example is energy planning. As explained by Mr. Galliano, Lyon is proactive on energy and on greenhouse gas reduction. So the application developed allow to assess the energy consumption for each building with a statistical approach. And the idea is to be able to represent, for example, the consumption of different buildings, as you can see there, and also to know the source of energy per building. In this example, you can see buildings provided in energy by the heating district network, and this is a very low carbon network. So it's interesting to know which are the buildings concerned. So you can also develop scenarios and compare scenarios. So a scenario is composed of different actions. So you can take an action, you can change parameters of the action, and you can combine the different actions together. The idea, for example, is to test the effect of a program of insulation of all building, or to test the tendential change in the behavior of the population. And at the end, you can answer different questions. For example, do I have to build another energy facility, or do I have to stimulate the behavior change and the renovation program for building? You can also, for the global metropole planning, you can also know the action to engage to reach the goal and the KPIs of concerning energy planning. Or you can also have a cost-effective approach to ensure that the actions that you engage are the best one on a cost-effective way. And to conclude, we are convinced that a systemic approach breaks the silos and create a lot of added value, as you can see on this different example. We are now addressing other issues like multimodal, as you can see at the top, or multimodal hub, or water planning. The basic idea, in fact, is to mutualize in a backbone data, information, project, and this backbone, we call it digital city mirror. And at the top of this digital city mirror, you can imagine address a lot of different issues and build a powerful decision tool. The goal at the end is always to help decision makers, which are private companies, which are local authorities, to make the good decision. And the goal at the end of that is to have the smartest city. Thank you for your attention.
Afternoon, everyone. My name is Simon Wyke, and I work for the Greater London Authority. I've come to talk to you today just to sort of give you a city's perspective. Hopefully what I'm about to talk about will sort of pick up on a number of things that we've actually discussed during the course of the morning. So hopefully you'll sort of get a chance to see how a city is sort of implementing some of the things that we're sort of been talking about. I'm going to talk basically about the role that we play in addressing climate change, mitigating climate change, delivering sustainable energy, and then also sort of the role that we've specifically got for sort of district energy in that. Oh, have you got? Ah, thank you. It's okay. Okay, just as I mentioned, I will talk quickly about the GLA family just so that you know the context for the Greater London Authority. I'll just touch on political commitment and sort of senior leadership in organisations really fundamental for sort of helping to drive these kind of initiatives forward. I'm going to talk about our climate change mitigation energy strategy, then the role of district energy, and then just sort of walk you through the journey that London's been on since sort of about 2000 when the GLA was sort of set up, sort of what we've done to enable district energy and where we're hoping to go. Okay, basically sort of the Greater London Authority is a regional government, and within the Greater London Authority there are actually sort of 33 local authorities. So we work at a regional government level, setting strategic direction. Also sort of within the Greater London Authority, we have London and Partners, which is a sort of an inward investment organisation. We have Transport for London, we have the Metropolitan Police, Fire and Emergency Services, and also the Olympic Legacy Development Corporation. Well, unfortunately, the slides don't seem to have quite come out on the formatting, but we'll crack on anyway. And then sort of as part of that, as I mentioned, it's a very strategic organisation. So we've got a number of strategies that the sort of mayor needs to develop. The major one is this spatial planning strategy. That's the London plan. We've talked a lot about sort of planning already sort of today, and it is fundamental to the evolution, the development and the growth of the city. What can we do in London to enable sort of growth to happen in the most sustainable way? We'll have a transport strategy that sort of looks at transport infrastructure, how enabling people to move in and around the city. We have an economic development strategy that looks at economic development, obviously. Then a number of environmental strategies, of which the climate change mitigation energy strategy is one. We've talked a lot about the challenges of today, so I won't sort of go into those too much. But I think sort of in London, we've got a real big challenge around growing populations. We've just this year, sort of just actually last year, sort of we hit 8.7 million people. That's the largest as London's ever been in its history, just topping the in the 1930s when there was a big movement into London again. So we've now got sort of a larger population that we've ever had in our history, and the projections are that sort of by 2050 we could be sort of over 11 million people. So that's sort of over, so potentially getting up to about 100,000 people coming into London each and every year. So obviously so that presents massive infrastructure challenges. That's accommodation, workspace, obviously sort of that energy issue as well. Then on top of that, we've obviously got to ensure that we've got security of supply. We've got affordable energy infrastructure, addressing things like fuel poverty, which is an issue in the UK, and also sort of obviously sort of meeting those climate goals as well. And sort of what we sort of hope to do sort of through this is sort of by one, addressing energy efficiency, reducing demand, but also sort of looking at energy generation at a city level and sort of trying to move towards a sort of a more circular energy economy within the city, where sort of we're reducing demand, we're generating some more energy within the city, but we're also utilising secondary energy sources within the city, integrating those into our energy systems. So we're moving demand for primary energy upstream. And then also sort of the other thing that's really important for us is to integrate heating and power systems. Sort of quite often those two infrastructures have worked quite separately, but increasingly we're sort of looking at district energy, the role it can play not only in providing heat and low carbon heat and affordable heat, but also the role it can play in supporting the electricity network and bringing on larger amounts of sort of intermittent renewables into the electricity network, also the role it can play in grid balancing and enabling like sort of storage of surplus electricity as thermal, as heat, and then utilising that within our heat networks. Oh dear, we've really got some formatting issues now. Basically, this is just to tell you about our climate change targets. We've got two major targets. Our first one is a 60% carbon reduction target by 2025 with an 80% by 2050. But as a city, we'll be hoping to go beyond that 80%. That's a national requirement, that 80% by 2050. And this is sort of, and what this gives you is an indication of where those emissions come from. You can see almost 80% of our emissions come from buildings. That's a real big challenge for us, existing buildings. And so that's consumption within those buildings and sort of the supply of energy into those buildings. And then transport is about 20%, just over 20%, 22. And so that's because we've got a very extensive public transport system. Quite unusual for a major city to have that lower level of emissions in transport. That's because we've got a very extensive public transport system that allows people to move around in the most efficient way. Obviously, we're putting additional infrastructure in place, additional investment into that to continue that, creating sort of very interconnected transport hubs that allow people to move around the city without having to actually get in private vehicles. And this is just a graphic to show you basically sort of where London's CO2 emissions. You can sort of see 1990 were about 45 million tonnes. In 1990, it peaked in 2000 at just over 50 million tonnes per annum. And then we sort of dropped over the course of the next 13 years. You can sort of see 2013 was sort of just over 40 million tonnes. So that's about a 12% reduction in CO2 from 1990 levels. And you'll have remembered from a previous slide, we've got a 60% by 2025. But actually, sort of by 2015, we're hoping to get to 20%. So fingers crossed we'll get there. And this is just very quick to show you sort of how we sort of break that down. We look at our sort of what we're doing in 3 sectors. Basically, at a buildings level, we've got residential and commercial and public. We sort of break those down and the emissions related to those, and also from a transport perspective as well, and sort of what each of those can do and where reductions might come from. And so we've got existing activities that are happening, new government initiatives that will work, we've got mayoral initiatives that will sort of add additional activity, and then we've also sort of got future activity from both government and at a mayoral level to try to reduce emissions further. So we want to go from 45 million tonnes per annum down to 18 million tonnes per annum by 2025. And this is just a sort of summary of that climate change mitigation energy strategy. We look at it at a sector-by-sector basis. And sort of what we're sort of really concentrating on in London sort of is using public money to sort of help catalyse the market, support the market, prove the business case, show that investment opportunities sort of make financial sense, de-risk that activity so that we're attracting public sector money in to support that. What we're wanting to do is look at programs that are able to scale up so that we're actually able to scale those up and sort of deliver those across London in the most sort of financially effective way. So I mentioned before, we've got 33 London boroughs within London, so we need to work very, very closely with those to ensure that the programmes that we're looking to do and that they're looking to do are as effective as possible. And then obviously we're looking to sort of set an example through the GLA group and what we can do both at a London, UK and a global level. Okay, just a little bit about our energy efficiency and our transport programs very quickly, and then I'll just move on to the district energy aspect. So we do obviously sort of recognise energy efficiency fundamental to sort of meeting our energy goals and also sort of to ensuring that we've got sort of affordability of energy supply. So we've got 2 major sort of programs, one for residential called Renew and another for public buildings, which is sort of looking at supporting retrofit of existing buildings to reduce demand. Also around transport, sort of mitigating emissions related to transport. I mentioned that we've got a very extensive public transport system and consequently sort of a lot of investments going into that. And when we're looking at buses and things, we're looking at hybrid buses and hydrogen buses. We've got examples of those in London that are helping to sort of create market opportunities for those types of technologies, hoping to increase those continually throughout the decade. Then obviously sort of individual private vehicles and things as well, so sort of cars, scooters. We've already got some hydrogen taxis sort of in the sort of that iconic sort of London black cab design as well. We've got sort of, and we mentioned congestion charge a little earlier as well, so sort of got congestion charge and sort of where if you've got sort of low emission vehicles then sort of you're exempt from that congestion charge. So again, trying to sort of work towards encouraging the market and obviously looking at sort of how we can integrate sort of supporting infrastructure. Okay, and then now sort of just talking about that sort of decentralised energy and district energy aspect. I mentioned we've got a 25% decentralised energy target, which basically means that in London what we're looking to do is provide 25% of our energy demand from local energy sources by 2025. We've estimated this will sort of reduce our carbon emissions by sort of around 3.2 million tonnes, hopefully more, depending on the sort of the type of technologies that are sort of integrated in that and sort of deliver sort of 12%, it's a minimum 12% of our CO2 savings. Over 50% of that we're sort of expecting to come from large and medium scale sort of district heating systems. Obviously combined heat and power play a role in that, but obviously as we go through the years increasingly there'll be contributions from renewable and also sort of waste heat or sort of secondary energy sources. And just something here to sort of mention that sort of, and I mentioned about the investment opportunity and things. It's something that we're sort of really keen to do in London, is to sort of promote actually what the challenge is, what we need to do to address it, but actually what that investment opportunity is for businesses. Again, it's going back to that job creation opportunity investment. And sort of, we're looking at sort of about a 10-fold increase in generating capacity, but it's sort of estimated through a study we did at about an 8 billion investment opportunity. And sort of at the moment, we're getting increasingly favourable policy framework at a national level. Obviously, we've already got very sort of favourable policy framework at a London level as well. So sort of what that's doing is that's supporting activity in that area. And as I mentioned before, what we're looking to do is try to remove the barriers to delivering district energy, sort of sharing risk with the private sector, and sort of harnessing private sectors, both their finance and also their ability to deliver. Okay, and sort of we've talked a lot about electricity here and sort of in the renewables things, but actually sort of in London, sort of heat, I mean, like in sort of across the world, heating and cooling, we've got sort of nearly half of our energy demand actually sort of comes from heat, and sort of consequently that's a really sort of large part of the sort of the challenge that we've got, about 30% of our CO2 reductions. And sort of we think that sort of in London we've got sort of, that's a really good opportunity for us to sort of help to lead the way in London and sort of look at sort of what's the best way of decarbonising that area. So we work very closely with national government on electricity policy and decarbonisation, but decarbonisation in the UK sort of is happening a lot at a national level, sort of decarbonising the grid. So we're working closely with national government, but we think London has got a real important role to play in heat. What we're looking to do there is obviously reduce the level of energy demand for heat. Sort of, we're looking at sort of locally sourcing sort of a number of those issues, reducing the carbon intensity of the heat. What we're sort of starting to move to more and more is about sort of low carbon districts and things and neighbourhoods, actually sort of not just doing energy efficiency or decarbonisation of supply, but bringing those two together so that you're able to sort of deliver a low carbon and ultimately zero carbon district in the most cost effective way. Then also sort of, as I mentioned, sort of London's a sort of a high density urban environment with high heat demand. So there's a number of places within London where sort of we've done our research and sort of actually sort of district heating is sort of the most cost-effective and carbon-effective way of sort of supplying those solutions. That's really important to us. What we do is we always look at what is the cost of delivering heat into homes and sort of how cost-competitive is district energy. Now I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about the process that we've sort of gone through sort of between since we were sort of set up to sort of to where we've got to. Initially I mentioned the our spatial plan, the London plan, that sets the sort of the development framework sort of for London and how we see London evolving and growing. What that enabled us to do was to sort of have a look at what our energy demand is. Sort of we gained our political support, and sort of what we're trying to sort of do now is one, ensure that planning policy is encouraging district energy, and also sort of where we've got opportunities for district energy, we're providing support to develop those projects out. So a lot of energy master planning. So what we did initially was London heat map, which was basically just sort of looking at London and sort of saying where is the heat demand in London, where are the heat sources, do we have a viable business case for developing district heating in various parts of the city. And what you'll sort of see from the map on the right is there sort of significant parts of sort of where heat demand sort of we believe is sufficiently high to make sort of district energy a cost competitive way of supplying heat into buildings. This is publicly available, so it sort of helps all stakeholders to be able to develop an understanding of where we see district energy might go. And then taking that another step further is our energy master planning, actually taking that heat map and going down into greater resolution, understanding where the real opportunities for district heating are, where they might be, what they might look like, what the network routes might be, and what local authorities need to do to be able to sort of safeguard those areas and encourage the development of district heating in those areas. So supportive planning policy. And we've done that in 14 of the boroughs already. And as part of our London plan, we have things called opportunity areas, which are large-scale regeneration areas within London, where we see large amounts of residential development and job creation happening. And sort of for those areas, we create energy master plans, which will sort of drive supports the energy system development. And then what we needed to do is develop projects out. So we know where our heat demand is, sort of we know what the system's sort of starting to look like, but sort of how can we get those projects developed and brought to market. We had an EU-funded project through the European Investment Bank that provided us with development funding to provide technical, commercial and financial support to stakeholders to be able to develop out district heating systems and take them to market, get them funded. We had £3 million, of which sort of 10% of that was funded by the GLA, 90% by the European Investment Bank. And that £3 million has provided us over the 4 years from 2011 to 2015 with a pipeline of 21 projects that we've actually taken right through to market. That's over £100 million worth of projects. And we've got a number of other projects obviously in the pipeline that we've developed through that, and that we're looking at developing a successor programme that will continue to support the development of those projects. Really, really important for developing district energy to have that technical and commercial support. And then the other bit I've talked quite a lot about is investment and things. And one of the things we recognised we needed to do was to create an investment vehicle that would actually support the development of these projects and provide a rate of interest that would sort of allow them to sort of provide a commercial rate of return. And so this is something we set up using European Regional Development Fund. It's a European funding stream matched with public sector money and then matched again with private sector money, creating an opportunity to fund district energy projects, prove the business case, prove that they're commercially viable, raise awareness and understanding within the financial sector of what the demands are for district energy projects, and hopefully sort of encouraging greater flows of funding into district energy.